Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yoshi the Oreo here. So I said I was going to come out with a video talking about why I detest socialism or Marxism or communism or any variant of it. So my criticisms of socialism isn't purely from a reading from a historical perspective. It's actually more from a historical and lived experience perspective. So this was back in 2013. It's part of my job experience, being a computer repair technician. I used to work at this warehouse called Flextronics. It was a pretty good job. The standards of being able to be like a computer technician at that time was at least a standard, if I could say so. You had to understand the computer components, right? You had to understand what an LCD is. You have to understand what memory was. You have to understand what a motherboard is and where the CPU is and everything. And a heat sink and thermal grease and how to apply thermal grease. Like, these were like basic things you would have to understand in order for you to actually, pass the standardized test that they would usually give, in order for you to continue working as a computer technician. So, this is me like fresh out of college. I actually have the logic down. I actually understand what I'm looking at. So I passed the test with flying colors, no problems. Then, go through the whole standardization test, go through the process of learning how to use their system and how to order parts and, the ifs and, the don'ts and all this stuff and the wins, understand the conditions of what you're supposed to do as well, at that time, it was more an assembly technician as opposed to a computer technician. Because at the start of my career, the job was more assembly technician. And basically, and there is a difference between the two, right? So an assembly technician is a person that's given a set of instructions on how to disassemble and reassemble the product. Like, they don't have like the technological know-how or understanding on how to diagnose a computer. Their whole job is to just break it down and put it back together with a high quality ratio on how to put that back together with like no gaps, no bulges, no damages, external damages that you caused. And I had a really good teacher. I forgot the original teacher. I actually had two. I forgot the first guy's name, but my escalation tech that we had on the flow line, that's what it was called, that we were working on. His name was Thomas. I'm not gonna give out his last name, but his name was Thomas. He was a really great guy. I would honestly consider him as my brother from another mother. Honestly taught me everything that I needed to know about computer diagnostics. Because I got to a point where like we had so many of the X220, X230 tablet models and notebook models, to the point to where like it was really, because we only had like two escalation techs. Well, they weren't really escalation tech. They were more diagnostic techs. And it was really starting to like, they were putting so much on them to the point where it's like, I think it was like after a couple of months, like me, a guy named Tim, and like another guy, we were like really good on that line. And we were like, hey, let us dag some units. And, it was a little back and forth here and there, but, sooner or later, we was able to negotiate with our supervisor. At that time, his name was Marvin. He was a bit of a tight ass, but like, if you can like outwit him in terms on how to do the work, he'll work with you, So, they gave us the permission to be able to dag, we got our units, they got the units, and, they were diagnosing the units, and then they'll order the parts. They'll put the parts on the tray with the computer, and they'll slide it down the line. And, me, Tim, and the other guy, we had our own tray. We had our own racks on the side, and we were ordering the parts. We were actually ordering the parts, too, and actually diagnosing the units ourselves. And I think it was, at that time, we were the only flow line, because it was like a work in progress kind of thing, that was working on like the X220, X230 models, and we were doing exceptionally well. comparatively to like the other technician lines where, you know, they have like the more experienced technicians, like they are DAG technicians. They've been there for about 5-10 years or so. You know, they could work on them, but they weren't working on them as fast as we were. Now, like any job, there's always that one thing that a lot of people do not want to mess with, okay? And X220, X230 notebooks and tablets were one of those types of models. And when I say those two models had a stigma on the floor, I mean, it had a stigma on the floor. I mean, if the technician had a choice between being called a pedophile versus working on 10 top to bottoms, which is just basically, you know, repairing everything in that computer from like the back case, the LCD, and everything up top, like the camera, the antennas, and everything, the wires, the LCD cable, the LED cable, like the whole kit and caboodle, and everything at the bottom, like base cover, motherboard, palm rest, keyboard, memory, the whole it, like from top to bottom, like 10 of those. If they had a choice between being called a pedophile and working on 10 of those every day, they would honestly take the chance of being called a pedophile, and they'll take it with a smile on their face. Like, it actually got so bad to the point, especially around summertime, you know, like EDU season, that's when like the public schools are like out. And, you know, like a lot of the public schools, they had like a lot of the Lenovo products. And what they'll do is they'll send those to the warehouses to get repaired. And you know how them kids really mess them computers up. Like, they just do not care. And and all of them got accidental damage protection. So that rarely would those things go to like escalation hold for them to be like replaced due to like I forgot what it was called, but basically if the repair exceeds the economical value of the computer itself, they'll just replace the whole thing instead of repairing it. There was a rare occasion that ever happened, and you was pretty much stuck with that unit. It got so bad to the point where we had so many of, and this is when like the flow lines were really starting to develop, and they were like scattered. Now that they actually got like the kinks out of that test one we was on, it got so bad to the point to where you had technicians threatening the material handlers, you know, the people that were handing out like the devices and stuff like that, to the flow lines, depending on what type of flow line works on what model. It got so bad to the point people were threatening the material handlers. Like, and I remember because I was working with this one guy, you know, it was a white dude, and the guy would just look her straight in the eye and said, "If you give me one more of these models, I swear to God, I will." I was like, bro, it ain't that serious. It's not that serious. When I say that is like the taboo of the floor, that is the taboo of the floor. Like, they just do not want to touch those darn things, man. But, you know, I didn't care because, you know, I actually had someone that actually taught me how to, you know, work on those models. And, you know, every now and again, we'll even race to see how many top to models we can actually fix before lunch. And, you know, the loser would actually buy lunch for, you know, because it's just me, Tim, and the other guy. So we'll like race each other to see who would actually end up buying lunch. Oftentimes I'll win. Sometimes he'd win. The average time it is expected to be able to repair one of those things was at least an hour and 15 minutes. We were doing it in 15 minutes or less. And a lot of people are like, how the hell are you guys like repairing these things in under 15 minutes or less? And it's like, it's simple. Know how to disassemble it and know how to reassemble it without you having to go back into the device to reassemble or like, you know, reconnect something, or you probably forgot to, you know, seat something in, because that will eat all your time when you're repairing those units. Because the way the LCD is, it's like it'll have 4 little tiny screws on the side, and then it'll have 3 tiny screws on the front bezel. You have to remove the bezel, then once you remove that bezel, I think it's like 4 other screws that also hold down the LCD panel. And then once you get all those screws out, then you can pop off the LCD panel, right? And you know, you had your LED board, which, you know, controls the power button on the LCD surface bezel, where the LCD bezel is. You had the LED cables, the LCD cable, the antenna, all that other stuff. Like, and it would be like a real gut punch if you like went so fast to the point to where you thought you had everything connected and everything. And once you're done with the top section, you're done with the bottom section, you put the top section on the bottom section, you secure down the hinges, you put everything back together, you run a PC doctor, and then next thing you know, you run the PC doctor test. And then next thing you know, your touchscreen doesn't work, or it's off somewhere in like a little corner because you didn't push that cable in all the way into the LED board. And it's like, oh, now you got to go through you got to remove the screw covers, and then you got to take out the screws again. Like, it eats a lot of time. So me and Tim and the other guy, we knew how to go in, get it done, make sure everything's connected, and we just rush and put that thing back together. Like, it was no problem. And I think after like, I want to say 2 years, that's where me and Tim, we ended up getting rolled over from temp to actually being part of Flextronics. And that was a really good achievement in my time. At that time, our temp pay was like $12.50, I believe. Was it $12.50? I want to say it was either $12.50 or $9.50. It was $9.50, but then when we got rolled over, it was like $12.50 or something like that. Now, after that, after like, I would say like a year and a half, the stigma about those models got so bad to the point to where, I could tell when someone was trying to be your friend, not because they like you, but because, you're good at something that they don't want to deal with. And they will always try to like butter you up to make you think like, oh yeah, I'm your friend and benefactor. And because, you and I are both friends, you should handle the stuff that I don't want to handle. And then the stuff that you can't handle, you can keep that yourself. And because, you're the guy that knows everything and you're being paid top dollar, and you should handle the models that nobody wants to deal with, and we should handle the stuff that everybody wants to deal with, like, the easy stuff like broken palm rest, keyboards, missing keys, or memory receipts, image hard drives, anything that's simple, let us handle that. But like all these top to bottoms and all this other stuff, and like that actually require computer know-how, you should be handling that. And it got so bad, like did I have friends? Like I actually, yeah, I did have friends, but like even the technicians and the friends that I was actually comfortable with, like sometimes they'd even get on my nerves too, because sometimes they'll even do the exact same thing those people are doing. And I got so fed up about it to the point to where it was like, it forced me to quit that job. And it really hurt Thomas too, because it was like me and him were like best buds, like we were like brothers. And he hated the fact that I was leaving. Around that time, that's when he became supervisor. He was actually moving up. He was moving up, I was moving up, but I was like getting real fed up with that type of behavior. And I was like, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know who to talk to on how to like handle that kind of stuff. And it got to the point where I quit and I walked out. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find another job, something like this better. I had a lot of my savings. I wasn't stupid, because we were, as bad as that place was, we were working a lot to the point to where we were working like non-stop. Like Saturdays, we worked on Saturdays. Sundays, we worked on Sundays. And I'll tell you, man, when you got that check, you was happy as hell. You was happy as hell. Like, I'm talking about that check. Like the kind of money you like, you ain't worried about like eating the next day or something, or living check to check, like, especially if you know how to manage your money. So by the time I quit, I had so much money in my savings account. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can find a job after this, right? No, I did not find a job after that. So a bit of advice for people out there. If you're tired of your job, make sure you find one before you quit. You never want to do what I did, all right? Fast forward about a year after I ate through all my savings and couldn't find anything. I ended up getting carjacked. That was fun. And after that, I was able to get another car. I had to go back to my old job, to start back as a temp agent through Aerotech. That was fun again. And thankfully I was back under Thomas's supervision, you know, since he became a supervisor and everything. So I didn't have to worry about Marvin. And I definitely didn't have to worry about the other supervisors. I didn't care about the other ones. Like Michiko, she wasn't that bad. What was the other person? I forgot her name. She wasn't bad either. It was another guy, and then Charles. Charles, he was a cool guy. He was a cool guy. If you was doing your job, he'll work with you. But like, there was two supervisors. One of them I had, Mr. Marvin, tight ass. I already went over that. But we also had another tight ass, and his name was Richard, and he was Asian, so he was really about the books. You know, he was not afraid to throw policy in your face when you mess up. A lot of people didn't like Richard, but I actually liked Richard, and there was a reason why I liked Richard. Again, if you're working with if you're doing your job, you're not going to have a lot of problems with a lot of people, especially the supervisors. They will work with you. And that was the whole thing with Richard. Granted, he would try to like take advantage of like those who actually knew what they were doing, you know. I remember one time, like, our ship goal for that one day was like 18 like computers fixed and fully repaired and went down the quality, and they actually passed. Ended up getting like 18 in about, I think it was like 6-7 hours or something like that. And he was like, "Man, you were really good." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it ain't a problem." He's like, "Hey, and this is when we was doing like weekends like back to back with no sign of like, you know, it letting up." And he's like, "Hey, you know, if you give me 5 more, you don't have to work this weekend." I was like, I mean, yeah, I could, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. And on top of that, I don't really mind coming in on Saturdays because I don't want to be at the house anyway. So yeah, it sucks to suck. But I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry. And I remember the look on his face, bro, when the manager that managed that whole area came in on the floor. And I remember that look on that man's face when he said, "Hey guys, we ain't gotta work the weekends. Yay!" And I was like, "Oh, would you look at that, Richie Rich? Would you look at that? We ain't working no weekends." So, you know, I would have been doing all them extra units for no damn reason. But the real reason why I was really cool with Richard was because he was a nerd at heart. Like, he was a big Marvels fan. And, you know, when I'm done with work, you know, other guys were done with work, we'll just sit up there in his office, just talk about Marvel movies until like 8 hours are up, and we just clock out of work, man. And, you know, despite everything that I was going through at that job, it was actually great. It was a really great job. Now, this is when I believe everything that I hate about socialism really started to take root. Our original CEO of that department, he left, he retired, and then we ended up getting somebody else. And then that's when things really started like going downhill. Now, keep in mind, at this time, I came back after quitting. I was the temp, and because of my reputation amongst, you know, at that warehouse, I was able to get rolled over in about a year. Like, it didn't take that long. Like, I'm pretty good at my job. So at the first time it was just 2.5 years. Now it only took me a year to get rolled over. And I think that's like one of the things a lot of people really don't understand is that you definitely want to set up a rapport with your supervisors and people you work with, because the more you keep doing that, the more they have a face associated with your employee number, and it'll treat you more like a person as opposed to an employee number. Because I cannot tell you how many people, especially when I started like branching out and actually started talking to other technicians, especially the people that have been there for like 10-15 years, and I remember all of them. They all said the same talking points, and it was weird. This was like around the time President Trump was actually running for presidency. And they were all spitting the same talking point, talking about how it'd be great if we can actually be paid a living wage based on how long you've been an employee there. No? And keep in mind, these were people who were working here for about 10, 15 years or so. And I'm like, how's it you guys been working here in the... And I looked at their quality. Because around that time, after that, that's when I became part of the engineering team. And I had access to their data, so I could actually look at their quality efficiency. And every one of them was below 50% efficiency in quality. And I knew something was kind of up with the whole thing, especially considering the fact that, you know, my engineering position, at that time when I was temp, I was being paid $14 an hour. No, it was actually 13. It was 13 something. And then they're offering the engineering position. And I remember talking to my friend, because one of my friends were actually part of the engineering team. His name was Brandon. And he told me, he's like, we went through so many people's resumes, and the second they came across mine, they were like, him, get him. We need him. Nobody else. And then when I got rolled over into the engineering position, they weren't even planning to like increase my pay. But I was like, wait, so I got all these other responsibilities, but I'm being paid the same as a diagnostic technician? That doesn't make any sense. But I talked to the lead engineer, and he was like, no, you're right, that doesn't make any sense. So he's like, let me talk to my boss and see if we can actually do something about it. And the best he can do was bump me up $15 an hour. Keep in mind, before when I was a diagnostic technician, I was making I think it was like $16.81, and that was what the bonus quarterly bonuses we're actually making. That increased our overall pay over those years of those quarterly bonuses. So I was making a lot of money as a diagnostic technician, but for some reason it was like they were really shortchanging me as an engineering technician. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I was like, it'll look good on the resume, but like that doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. Ooh, also on top of the fact that I was top technician for about 8 months straight, then that's like $300 every month. So yeah, that's something. And this is when they brought in all that work from their Kentucky location, because that one ended up closing, and they brought it all the way over down here where we are, and they didn't have the space for it. But hey, you know, they had to take it all in for some strange reason. But yeah, that was a nightmare of a freaking transition, bro. Like, I wouldn't wish that on my enemies in any given point. Like, ooh, it was horrible. They did not have the space to put this stuff in the warehouse. And then a year after that, that's what kind of made me realize, like, at that time, I didn't realize I was actually under like some type of socialist policy. But now that I look back at it, I was like, yeah, that was socialist influenced by that CEO and how he managed everyone's pays. Because at that time, remember, like, all the technicians that kind of suck at their job was talking about we live in check to check, you know, the pay ain't living up to the standards of what you expect us to do. Like, people were making such ridiculous claims talking about, if I'm going to do a top to bottom, like, repair laptop, it needs to be worth that pay. So if you're doing top to bottom, then you should be being paid $21, $21 an hour or something like that. But I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, you're not being paid based off of that. Keep in mind, like, we're not being paid based off that. We're being paid based off of being able to repair the laptop, irregardless of what condition it comes in. Well, unless, you know, it has like, you know, cat piss or something like that in it. Then yeah, we send that back to the customer. We ain't touching that. And that's when I realized, like, a lot of the technicians who were, like, speaking like this were economically illiterate. And so was the CEO, because this what told me I'm in a socialist hellhole. So, considering my position being an engineering technician, right, I had more responsibilities. I was covering 2 department floors, by the way. I was doing commercial and consumer. And I was diagnosing any type of engineering device that they send on Engineering Hole for me to look at, right? Say, for instance, like if it comes in with no power issue and they replace like 3 motherboards that can't really do anything and other components and it's still not working, then I need to look at it. A lot of those technicians were like weaponizing the engineering system. They would just order like 3 motherboards, say they replaced 3 motherboards, and then send it to Engineering Hole when you're not supposed to do that. Because if all you're doing is just replacing the motherboard, you're not diagnosing the unit. So they would just order the parts and then they'll kick it down Engineering Hole because they didn't want to do anything with it. And when I see those, I would type in the notes, this is not an engineering issue. You didn't even diagnose the issue. You didn't even use VMI, which is not vehicle. It's basically an inspection of the unit to see what is the issue. Like 9 times out of 10, when they do that kind of stuff and you open up that unit, it's spill like right in your face. It's right in your face. It's on the LCD cable. It's on the memory. It's like everywhere. And you just order 3 motherboards. You didn't open the bags. It's easy to tell you opened the bag or not because it had that little ESD tag on it. And if you opened it, it tears, obviously. But they were completely sealed with no tampering whatsoever, but they'll just throw it down the line and be like, I did this, that, and I still can't figure it out. Sending it down the Engineering Hole for investigation. Every note like that. And it got so exhausting. Like I keep pointing this out to my leader, my engineering leader. Is like, I'm like, this is getting out of hand. Like they are clearly weaponizing the system to like make me do their job. And then they were expecting me to fix it and then send it back to them. So all they have to do is run PC Doctor and just claim all the credit. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, right, you're not doing that. You're not supposed to be doing that. Like the technician were trying to strong arm that department into making it the way they wanted to make it as opposed to what it's supposed to be. Now keep in mind, with all those responsibilities I had, this was the real gut punch that told me I am in a socialist hellhole and under no circumstance would I ever advocate or side with anyone who was a Marxist, a socialist, socialist Democrat, or a communist. Doesn't matter. I do not care. Tell me why I'm the one that has the know-how, the do-how. 8 out of 10 of the technicians have to come to me for advice on how to diagnose and repair the unit, right? The CEO increases their pay by coming up with this little system of like different tiers of diagnostic technicians from like 1, 2, and 3, right? And depending on what level you were, that was how much pay you got. So if you was a 1, you was a 16. If you were a level 2, you were being paid $17 an hour. And if you're a level 3, you'll be paid $18 an hour. So level 3 clearly says you know how to do the work, right? Explain to me, why is it you can increase their pay based on what they know, but you can't increase my pay based on what I know? So you telling me the person who in a ritualistic manner sends a device that they do not want to touch to Engineering Hole by ordering parts and saying that they did everything they could, but they never really didn't because it was a spill unit and they had to replace a lot of things and they don't want to deal with it. They'll send it to me to make me fix it and then hand it to them. They get paid $1 more than me. you made an enemy. $2 more than me. $3 more than me. And you can't figure out why you can't increase my pay for some reason? It was a literal slave system. And you probably think, oh, the CEO is white, and so he's... No, the CEO was black. He was black. A black CEO came up with a slave caste system. So if you knew what you were doing, you're the slave for all the other slaves. But if you didn't know what you were doing, we'll pay you the living wage. And I'm like, apparently you got to be a nigga in this world to be able to get what the hell you want, because apparently, you know, all these niggas can sit here, bitch and complain, not do their damn job and get what the hell they want. I guess I'm just going to sit here and not do my damn job either. So I was like, you know what? You're on your own. You're on your own. I'm just going to kick all this crap that's going to engineering home. I'm just going to kick it out. Unless it's specific technicians that I have trained personally that I have trained, that I am willing to work with. Outside of that, everybody else, you're on your own. You're on your own. And what pissed me off the most about it, despite the fact that all these greedy ass technicians talking about living wage, right? As much as they were complaining about that, the biggest conspiracy theory that was running out throughout the entire floor was apparently me making $30, $40, $50, $60, $70 an hour by basically doing nothing. And I'm just sitting here like, where are y'all getting this? I am not making that kind of money. What are you talking about? And then some of the technicians, like the ones that I was kicking those units back to them, and like, this is not an engineering issue. You need to work on this. No, they started, you know, trying to have attitude with me, talking about something. You don't do anything. All you do is kick this stuff back, and we don't get any help, and yada yada yada, and yada yada. I'm like, you have all these people out here who are supposed to be helping you. You don't go to them. And I made sure to actually write down all the case numbers, all the notes, and I even showed this to my engineering leader, saying that this is a consistent pattern of you not really trying to do your job. You're trying to dodge work. I had photos, notes, case numbers. I'm like, there's no way you're just gonna be able to like run your mouth on this. You're lying. And I remember he wanted to act like he was gonna fight me, but I'm like, I'm in a unaliving mood right now, so you don't really want to with me, bro. Like, trust me. And he was like, well, you getting paid $30, $40, $50, $60 an hour. I said, oh, son, come with me for a minute. So I brought him to my little desk. You know, I logged into my Workday portal. I showed him my check stub. I said, what does that say right there? You know, he got this pissed off look on his face like, man, whatever. I said, look at the screen. What does it say right here on my pay stub? He looks at the screen. And he's just like, you're not being paid that, are you? I said, yeah, I am being paid that. I am being paid $15 an hour by your spoiled ass, who is being paid $17 an hour to just simply run your fucking mouth. All right. And I just simply looked him straight in his eye. I grabbed the tray and I just shoved it right back into his hands. I said, now you listen here. Will you do me a favor and go back to your little coalition over there and tell them, the more you are paid, the more work you are expected to do. That was that little gay ass slogan that they had back then when they were talking about, oh, you living wage, check the check, we survive, check the check. If you getting paid more, you need to be doing more work. I said, okay, I like that slogan. I definitely right now like that slogan. And as far as I'm concerned, you are paid more than me. So shut up do the work, and if I hear any of you coon mother there talking about I'm being paid 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 dollars an hour to be sitting on my ass doing nothing, we are gonna have some problems here. I mean, yeah, he felt stupid, but he benefited off of it, so he didn't care. And it made him feel stupid. It made him feel stupid. I'm pretty sure it put a bad taste in his mouth, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure he didn't care. He did not care. He did not care that he and everybody who advocated for that upside down ass system benefited off of it and screwed me over in the process. It screwed me over, Brandon over, and all the other engineering technicians in that group too, on how these people can get paid more than us and they do not have the experience. The only experience they have is being told what to do. That's it. But the CEO thought, well, they're the ones turning the screws, so they're the only ones that know everything, right? And oh no, people, it gets far worse. Guess how many people were on the Tech 3 position? One guy. And guess how he got it? Well, first of all, guess what race he was? And no, I'm not assuming that he is racist, because, at first, I was assuming that, because, it was a white guy. But, I started doing a little digging on trying to figure out, why did you, out of all people, get the $18 increase? Meanwhile, nobody else can get it. That doesn't make any sense, especially considering the fact this was around the time we got notification that we lost the contract. So it was all going down, but it's how did you get the pay increase opposed to everybody else? Especially the people I've been working with, their quality was improving. Above 100%. And I was why aren't they getting it? I'm even talking to their supervisor. I'm hey, look at their quality. Why haven't they gotten the $18 increase? And this guy got it. Well, turns out it had nothing to do with racism. It had everything to do with the fact that Kasia, the person, one of the managers, that technician she had, as soon as word got out that they lost the contract and people were going to lose their jobs, he started having a hissy fit, talking about, how him and his nephew were busting their butts, trying to help this corporation get better and improve and get more money and stuff like that. And, he was starting to he was crybaby tacting, doing crybaby tactics, talking about how him and his nephew's going to quit. They're going to find something better. And considering he was the only technician Kasia had on her line that was slightly above average. And when I mean slightly above average, I mean he was slightly above 60% in terms of quality and efficiency, which ain't that high, by the way. She used the pay to blackmail him, quote unquote, to stay until, the contract was up. And he was far worse than the technician ones, technician ones, they'll just order a bunch of motherboards and say, I tried engineering a whole investigation. He was doing the exact same thing too. And he was trying to get me to do his work. I gave him the same talk. As a matter of fact, I tried to make it as hard as possible on him. I didn't give him the answer. I just walked him through it, and I had him fill in the blanks until he got it right. He didn't like me. I didn't give a because the CEO said, well, you know everything. Why should you care? And I remember, we did get our severance package, but, conspiracy theories have to run throughout the floor every time. So, a lot of people started speculating, they're not giving us a severance package. They're trying to hoodwink us and do this and that and all this other crap. And I remember going back there, the contract wasn't that big. It wasn't that long. I just read it. I was like, oh, okay, straightforward. You ain't really read the fine print or anything. There ain't nothing that requires a law degree to actually understand. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting my severance. I'm good on my severance. Now remember, all those coon types were coming to me talking about some. Are you getting your severance? Are you read the contract, right? Since you understand the contract, are we going to get it? I was like, read it, all of you, read it. I don't care. I'm not here to help you. I'm here to help myself. Read it. It's something about our people, man. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's something about our people that, I don't know, they just so low IQ to the point they don't understand when they are becoming a race traitor and they don't realize it, or they do realize it and they just play dumb because they don't want you to realize they're actually betraying you. And at the root of it all, it's always socialism. It's always some black cat advocating for Marxism, socialism, social democrats, and communists every freaking time. I mean, I know this was a long video and everything, but I felt like the context of, you know, the starting of that job all the way down to the boiling point was actually necessary to actually explain why I detest socialists. I consider them as a disease on this planet. Well, that's it for this long rant. If you made it this far, I truly appreciate you guys. So tune in next time for another video. Be safe and take care of yourselves. God bless everybody.